Hi there. I wanted to do a quick presentation about pet insurance and go through what has happened with my dogs. A lot of the money that we've spent is out of pocket. We didn't have insurance. And so I really want to help give you a little bit of extra information to make a better decision moving forward for the health of your dog. So first and foremost, please be kind to your vet. Um, they have to deal with a sick or injured animal. And then on top of that, obviously, we are really stressed about our animal. We're stressed about the finances. And so we need to always be kind and calm when we're at our vet because, sadly, they have a really high rate of suicide. It's a really stressful job, and I really don't want to do it myself. So they're very special people to be able to do that. So just remember, I know they know that we're stressed, and we just need to conduct ourselves in a really, respectful manner, regardless of what we're going through. And the truth is that people think that they're just so expensive and they're out to make a quick buck, and that's just not the case. Animal care is not subsidized by our government, so often we compare it to human care, and yet it's really comparing apples to oranges. Our human care is subsidized by our government. I can go to a government hospital and I don't pay 1 cent out of pocket, but you've got to think that what did that cost the government? The government paid for my care. The government does not pay for our dog's care. And so we really need to just have that little bit of thought at the back of our mind to say that things are expensive because that's just a lot of the time what they pay themselves. There's not a huge profit on, that they're marking up, but also they have bills to pay. They, obviously need to pay themselves. They have clinics, they have staff, and really it's just that things are expensive just because the supply of that, those pieces of equipment or whatnot are expensive. And so I think it's just something we need to really accept and not compare to human care. Um, and the other thing is that, yeah, really be open about your finances. I think if you say that I'm really worried about how much this will cost or this is my budget, you can have a good conversation to your vet and they will do their best to work within that because they don't want to see you stressed and they want to see your dog get the best of care or your animal. So we insured Kibble. We got him from a puppy, and he had a hip flexor injury just before he was 1 year old, and we did lots of rehab. We did lots of appointments, and in the end, we noticed that they stopped paying us any. We didn't get any money back from all these claims, and I'm like, oh well, forget it. I'm just going to save up the money myself, and that was my really my regret. I really wish I hadn't given up that because I didn't understand how much these things actually do cost. And so last year in 2023, Kiba was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. He had a surgery which was 10 grand. So that was paid out of pocket, and then there's scans and other appointments and things on top of that. So it was all about 20 grand out of pocket last year for Kibba's cancer. Then, so how much would I have gotten back? So I had a chat to a lady at the dog park, and her dog had a bone cancer. And when that was removed, it cost $25,000 for amputation. But she got like $19,000 back. And that's an awesome payout. Like you think that you only had to pay 6 grand out of pocket. Like imagine how much more relaxed she was having that insurance as opposed to me not having that insurance and having to find the 20 grand myself. So it's just something to think of that this is just how much these procedures cost. So we just need to, unfortunately, plan for worst case scenario. God willingly, that never happens, but unfortunately, if it does, we need to be prepared for how much these things will cost. And then a couple of months after his thyroid cancer was treated by removal, he did a cruciate ligament. And so that was another $7,000 that we did for his cruciate surgery, which was in May of last year. So he had his thyroid cancer removed in March, and then he had his knee surgery in May. And so that was $27,000 I was out of pocket. And how I paid for it all, thankfully, I had some savings. I've been putting some money aside for my dog's health because I thought that, I'll just put a bit of money aside instead of having insurance, which again, really was something I regret. I did lots of fundraising. So I made this special little biscuit and sold dog biscuits. A lot of it was put on mum's credit card. So thankfully, she just paid for that. And then I worked really, really hard to repay her that $27,000. Sadly, earlier this month, we lost our baby boy. So we had 10 days of just confusion of what was happening, multiple vet visits, scans. He lost use of his back legs, and we found that he had three cancers that had returned, unfortunately. And so he gained his wings earlier this month. And you're not only going through the loss of my baby boy, he was only 8, is the fact that on top of that, all those expenses cost $11,500. And then you've got another, $1,500 for cremation and home euthanasia, if that's your choice. So, it's hard that, yeah, you're going through that hard time, and I still have that debt that I'm repaying. Thankfully, my parents have put that back on their credit card again. So, yeah, so just again understanding that this is the cost of caring for our dogs or our any other animal. So like I mentioned before, I didn't reinsure him. So after the cancer and the cruciate surgery, I started to think about insurance again, and I thought I'm not going to reinsure Kibba because he has a history of cancer, because he has his history of cruciate tear. Any claims that I made, they would relate it back to that. So even with that $11,500, I would not have gotten any of that back because they'd say it's a pre-existing condition because he already had cancer. So it is what it is. It was just no point doing it. So that's just what we did, and I'd do it again, and I'd give him as much money as I could to save him. But yeah, just remember, this is just to remind you about the cost of um, healthcare for our dogs, and particularly when, unfortunately, these things, bad things happen. So last year, like I said, I did think about reinsuring, and I did that for Freya. Um, so I reinsured her as an 11-year-old dog. So I had insured her as a 4-year-old, but then we stopped with Kibba. So she hadn't had insurance either. And so last year I started to reinsure her at $120 a month. She's now 12, and that premium has gone up slightly. But just a few months ago, she had her cruciate done as well. And so that was 5.5 grand at this particular vet clinic. But because of insurance, I got $2,000 back. And, when you think about that, that would have taken a lot longer for me to save up. And even when you say it's, you think that, you'll put $100 a week aside, that still would have taken me, 5 months to save. And even the premium means that that's like 2 years of premium that's been paid. And that's not only the thing that, insurance is paid for. So they've also paid like $800 back from a $1,600 dental that we had. So this is just kind of the bigger numbers to kind of understand that sometimes, yeah, the company that I'm with says they'll cover up to 80% of the vet bill, which for the surgery, which in this case would have been like 4 grand. But again, fine print, and I'm only covered for $2,000. But again, I'm really happy that I got 2 grand back as opposed to nothing. So always read the fine print. So these are just my takeaways from how I feel about pet insurance, and about trying to save some money when you're at the vet, but also like doing it in a really respectful way as well. So, like I said before, be open about your budget. So when we had Kiba in hospital and we said, okay, I was happy to pay up to 10 grand for the investigations and possibly we were going to find another 10 grand for surgery. It wasn't appropriate for him, but it was good to have that conversation to know, okay, well, what are you expecting? How much is in your budget? I'm like, okay, well, I know a surgery costs about 10 grand. I know these scans can cost 5 grand. So, you do those kind of math in your head to say, okay, well, this is my budget. And then, but yeah, always be open about your budget. Say, I only have this much. What can we do to treat this much, and go, proceed from there. A way to save a bit of money could be to ask for prescriptions. So instead of fulfilling the medications from your vet themselves, you can ask for a prescription and then go to a local pharmacy. Often you can save, $30 by getting a human form. Some medications, though, don't come in human form because they are just for animals, in which case you'll have to purchase from the vet themselves. But usually you might pay, say, $20 or $30 for the prescription, and then $20 or $30 for the medication, and that's $60. And I still would have saved myself, $20 or $30, depending on how much the script would have been. A good thing to do is try and have vet visits regularly. Again, try and budget for these, because you want to try and catch things early before they become bigger and more expensive problems. So having your vet keep regular eyes on them to check them out, check if there's any lumps, if lumps are getting bigger, or blood tests, things like that. Regular visits are really, really good to do. Even if you do have insurance, which I strongly suggest you do, still open an account for them. I think it's good. I try and save like $100 a week, which again is only like 5 grand a year, and that gets eaten up from stuff anyway. But you can use that bank account just for them to pay their insurance or their food, fun stuff. And in case, you do have an emergency and you do have to pay $1,000 or 2,000, hopefully you would have saved enough in there anyway. And you just, you if you'll probably drain it and you just start again. You just keep saving for them. You can also do rehab yourself. Obviously, one of the reasons I created my online products and my app is because I want to try and help reduce the stress and the financial impact of doing rehab externally. So taking them to hydrotherapy or another rehab therapist can get really costly, and it's really stressful. So being able to do the rehab, like after cruciate surgery, those can after surgery rehab would have cost me a lot more, but because I was able to do it at home by myself, obviously I saved myself a lot of money. So I really do recommend you insure from a puppy. I know it feels like you're paying for nothing, but the thing is you're catching them before they have any pre-existing conditions to be kind of voiding certain conditions out of your policy. And really, in hindsight, like if you pay $1,000 a year for insurance and your dog lives 19 years, that lady got $19,000 back and didn't even have to pay premiums for 19 years. So it really does make sense to budget for pet insurance, even from a puppy. And obviously from a puppy, they'll have a lower premium because they're healthier, they're less likely to have any diseases and things like that. So it would increase as the dog gets older. And always read the fine print. So it does help you budget. So I inquired to find out how much of my insurance would cover the surgery for Freya before we did it, because then I could plan to have that money available for her. So please, I know it's really hard, but please consider using um, getting pet insurance for your dog or for your cat, and really putting it in your family budget, because should the worst happen, that you'll have a bit of peace of mind knowing that there's going to be a large proportion of it covered, and hopefully you won't be in a condition in a situation like me where we've said goodbye to our dog but we still have thousands of dollars of debt. But that could have been different if we had pet insurance. So I hope this helps, and have a lovely day.